Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to the talk, Split Architecture and Inner Source. Let the developers spread their wings. I hope you are all doing great and you are ready for the next 40 minutes of content. My name is Paweł Helm and I'm Android developer in HSBC. And today I'm giving this talk together with Jacek.
Hi everyone, my name is Jacek Filo. I'm working as a technical leader in HSBC. Hope you're going to find this presentation interesting.
Okay, so to start with, going away from building monolith applications was a big step forward in Android mobile world. Modular applications has many advantages over monolith apps. They are more scalable, and their code is more reusable. They have clearer separation of business concerns, and they are faster to build. In this talk, we would like to present you a way how you can gain even more benefits from modularizing your application and boost it with the power of inner source. So the path for today will be as follows. At the beginning, we'll talk about the inner source and why we should bother about this. Later, we'll move on to the topic of how to create the reusable app architecture ready for the inner source. And finally, we will discuss in more details how to establish inner source community inside our organization. So the question which you may ask yourself is why we should even bother about the inner source. And to answer this question, we must go thousands years back and remind ourselves the story about Tower of Babel. As you may know, this story tells about the Babylonians who wanted to build a tower that will reach heaven. Mighty God, however, didn't like this idea much and decided to mix Babylonian speech so that they couldn't understand each other and spread them around the world. As you may expect, the project called Tower of Babel failed. I'm not exactly sure if this story is 100% true, but if it is, the God has made us a lot of mess because from now on, collaboration between people has become harder than ever. Nowadays, having only the technical knowledge of how to build towers or bridges, or in our case, how to build mobile applications, is not enough. If we don't want our project to fail, like the Tower of Babel, we have to know how to communicate and collaborate with each other. And we need to constantly improve on that field. And this is especially true when it comes to big international companies, which are spread around the world. So our company, HSBC, is one of these companies. HSBC is one of the largest banks in the world. It hires more than 50,000 of employees and has its offices in more than 80 countries. It's a global organization and the diversity within its boundaries is really huge. And when it comes to the software development, the situation is no different. We got more than 300 Android developers who are working from around the world, and therefore we have to collaborate between different time zones with different cultures and languages. To give you the view on the amount of work that we are producing every day, we are submitting over 100 PRs each day, and we are deploying 3 applications to more than 30 markets, most of which has also different languages. So summing up, our work environment is really complex. And the question which you may ask yourself is how we manage to unite people in so big organization around one single goal and make their collaboration successful. So here comes the inner source. Inner source has its origin in the open source culture. And in fact, this is the adaptation of the open source pattern inside the enterprise company. Open source has very good reputation when it comes to collaboration. And the reason for that is really simple. It has one very important rule, which says that everyone is welcome to any project and can freely contribute to it. It gives developers a wonderful chance to improve their skills and learn technologies they wish. In return, open source software also gain a lot from this free contribution. Thanks to that, it is usually considered very well tested and therefore highly reliable and secure. And this is mostly because of the fact that every member of the community can pay attention to the quality of the project, of the product, and raise issue when it's needed. So in general, when you are introducing inner source in your company, you are getting all of these benefits out of the box. However, in HSBC, we wanted to go one step further. And apart from that, we had also some other motivations. Of course, we wanted to make our development more mature, and applying open source principles gave us this possibility. We wanted also to make our code more reusable, so that we no longer have to solve the same problems over and over again. Because as you can imagine, each banking application has similar set of functionalities, such as accounts, cards, authentication, login, etc. Our aim was to create each feature only once and adapt it to all applications which requires it. And thirdly, HSBC, apart from delivering banking products to its clients, has to deliver also a cutting-edge software. This is why we need the best people in business to work on our solutions. And by creating the best environment to develop software, we want to attract these people to join us and keep current employees on board, giving them the best possibility to grow. So, long story short, we came up with this idea that if we want to successfully introduce the inner source inside our company, we need two things. First is the architecture, which will allow us to reuse all the application components that we create. And the second is harmonious and collaborative community, which will seamlessly apply best programming practices into our projects and therefore increase our productivity. And now Jacek will elaborate a bit more on the part connected with the architecture.
Thanks, Paweł. Yeah, as Paweł mentioned, we want to use best programming practices in our project and focus on a productive task. We don't want to solve same problems all over or go through decision-making process of exact same thing, just in a different language. For this, we really need to sit down together first and understand our product. For example, in our company, one of the biggest requirements is something you may not know yet. HSBC is not only HSBC itself, it's also MS Bank, First Direct, or any of the partnership brands. Just this one requirement gives us awareness that our code will have few completely different faces. It will be targeted to different user groups, will consist of different functionalities. Though there may be same thing to do in app, it has to be aligned to what client expects from a specific brand. There is no shortcut for that. We have to find a way. This may be more of a business requirement, but certainly shared architecture or capabilities is common for both business and IT guys. As shown on slide, same fingerprint handling for Australian and French app. Business doesn't want to pay for having same work done for each app, and we don't want to do the same work multiple times. If we are doing some component capability, let's have it done once and let's do it right. It's better tested then and we have a better sleep. It's a win-win for everyone. Another common requirement is scalability. Once implemented feature for single market should be available for quick migration to any other entity. Always keep growth in your mind, not only your personal. Growth of a product you make, it's also important. We have apps delivered across the globe. Not every country have same requirements from banking applications, Some expect just a basic functionality, some really needs bells and whistles. Do not reject it. We all love to have some nice features. Expect from a feature to be as portable as possible. It should be easily configurable for another app or market. Even if your feature seems to be like 60-70% different from existing, find a common part. Extract it, let it grow, and be reusable for any feature works. Yeah, multiple brands and banking industry regulations made us prepare for multiple independent applications. Each application, even though created from same code base, is a separate product. It means in practice that each application has its owners, compliance, release process, priorities. We need to play along with that. That gives us a few new worries. Will we be able to still have one code base? Will we need to fix one and not other? Or will we need to support many old versions? You can probably think right now of many other complications it will make. And last but not least, HSBC is global bank. We have to take care of the product quality because also global, it is reputability. We operate in many countries and use that global brand recognition. It has to be pure and must be associated with quality and security. Not only that, we also want that for us too, right? And we actually had to came to one conclusion. We need to solve everything at one shot, but no rush. Let's do it wise. We gave it few thoughts, and what we came up is split architecture. We have extracted what components we need and their responsibilities. We need three groups of things for sure. First one is core features like UI components, navigation, networking, just the basic stuff, Then we need business features, obviously. And at the end, we need to find a way to have it all connected. As mentioned, first of all, we need to gather solid ground for any further developer work. We call them foundational libraries, as they are used on request by any app feature. Those are separated libraries with specific problem to solve, delivered by inner source and maintained by a separate team. When you try to split your app, you will quickly realize there is a lot of them required. For instance, core. This is a set of interfaces and one shared dependency across all the layers. It shouldn't have any concrete implementation, as any change there will make chain reaction of changes. Design system is probably the most popular thing to do in companies when it comes to separating parts of app. It consists of UI components and teaming for all the brands. It grows rapidly and requires a lot of effort to do properly, but it also allows you to capture some requirements within it. For example, accessibility or animations, it can be done there, tested there, and be ready to ship for any product without being part of overwhelmingly big delivery process. Networking, on the other hand, may sound like a simple wrapper for retrofit or anything like that, but in our case, it's not. We wanted it to capture requirements of different APIs we use, so that way, when we create networking client, we provide it with configuration and we are good to go. It encapsulates logic of different APIs contracts and handles their behavior. For example, in our case, it translates also errors and reads metadata from them into specific models for apps to handle. With dashboard, we actually came to a conclusion lately that we're missing it. Dashboard is the clue of any app. And if you want your app to be dedicated to a specific group of people, it can be one generic for each. It has to adapt. It has to be configurable. That's why we extract it into separate framework and let different markets have their own choice of widgets on it. There are many more libraries like security, navigation, storage. I've listed just some of them for your awareness that actually anything could be extracted into separate library, and it's always good to give a thought if it should be in your case. After we have drafted contracts with foundational libraries and implemented core capabilities to be reusable for anyone else, we can start working on app features. We call them journeys. Journey is a business process like logging in, account details, transfer, credit cards. Any feature of your app can be a journey. It's usually implemented in our case by a separate team with its own product owner, BA, QA, or any other required role. Main role of a journey is to deliver a value for your clients. Although we really like to look on architecture in our app, it has to have some features too. Having it that way presents a bit of extra work, as it is delivered in a form of a library deployed to Nexus. Team working on a journey has to have separate repo, CI, CD configuration, own test, sample app, or separate documentation, and many others. But it also has its pros. First, it can be developed and tested faster. Without that split, whole app would build literally in hours. No one wants to wait for it. Also, team decides on release. Our app has its own stream of releases. If you want to get on the certain release, you just bump version within app and your features here. When something goes wrong on regression or any other test, it's easy to revert and go back to fixing on your library. Also, thanks to that, any market can pick features they want in app. No one is forced to have it all, and because of that, our app is lightweight. We do have issue with binary size. Having all the features would probably make us hit the Google Play limit. Having them configured as a dependency for only specific markets with Gradle flavors makes it a lot easier. All of this gets us to one point. We need to make out of multiple separate libraries a ship-ready product. AppShell is a concept of a placeholder for whole content. In our example, we have app delivered to multiple different markets and sometimes under different brands. So its purpose is to enable different markets to define what they want to include in which version and to prepare application for release. How it's done? AppShell actually is nothing other than a good old Android app project. What's different is that ideally it should have almost no code. Most of the AppShell work is done within Gradle scripts. We have flavor for each brand and market, and that defines libraries it uses. As mentioned, it helps to deliver functionalities into only specific markets and reduces overall app size. It doesn't have to be per flavor. It can be anything for your company, user group, language, or even sort of subscription. It also separates configuration of each application. This is a piece of core configuration similar to what we have in Gradle, but also each flavor consists of separate module with configuration files that store things like endpoints, kill switch values, app behavior, etc. In the end, it will have all the usual stuff you use: ProGuard configuration, build tabs, versions, and SDK details. There is also a lot to do in terms of having this as a single place of truth for knowing, for example, which version of dependency we use. That's why it's important to have most strict rules of contributions there and have standards documented for developers to know exactly what does whole community agreed on. That's it for architecture, but what makes it possible to have certain community culture in your company. And I will let Paweł guide you through it now.
Okay, thank you, Jacek. Now we will move on to the topic of building community around our inner source projects. So you have to keep in mind that such community should be developer-centric, and therefore you have to solve three main problems. First one is how to attract the developer to use your software. Second is making this developer stick around to the project and attract him to contribute to it. And third, you want these developers to become the members of your community, and so that one day they will become even new code maintainers. So how to achieve that and how to start the transformation within your company? At the beginning, you have to rethink how your work is organized. You have to establish open source culture behind the walls of your company. So first and the most crucial part is your management acceptance. You have to make sure that your managers understand and support this change and see the same benefits as you for the company. Second of all, you need to define new roles within your organization because it will no longer be the same when you introduce inner source there. And finally, you have to establish some new common rules regarding the documentation, contribution agreements, and communication. And only fulfilling all of these principles will let you cook a delicious inner source. So now let's talk in more details about these new roles, which I mentioned. First of them is code maintainer, and it's a fundamental role when we consider inner source. Code maintainer has very responsible job to do because he has to review and accept all PRs before they are merged. It's very important, however, for the code maintainer not to create the bottlenecks inside the repository so that the development goes smooth and contributors are not discouraged by waiting too long for their reviews. Of course, not all PRs can be checked at once. So it's very useful to create some kind of hierarchy of importance for these PRs. And here the GitHub labels make here a great job. Apart from that, code maintainer should know the project inside out, share his knowledge with others, and respond to any question from the community. Last but not least, code maintainer should also guard the established code standards and protect the test coverages, because he's the person who is most responsible for the project. And whenever something goes wrong, he's the first person to contact and most probably the first one to blame. On another side of the board, there is contributor. And this is also a great role because contributors can freely contribute to any project. However, this freely doesn't mean that contributor can be some kind of coding renegade in the repo. He has to obey certain rules. And most important for him is to understand the project structure, its architecture, all underlying patterns, and follow them. What is more, whenever he finds a bug, he should instantly inform about this the community and most preferably raise the issue on GitHub. Contributors should also follow all contributing agreements, which will be discussed later. At the end, we have release and DevOps engineers. And these roles are not so crucial when we are talking about the inner source, but from our perspective, they are helping a lot with the development, and they simply keeps the developers happy. Everyone knows that creating and maintaining pipelines, releasing application to the store can easily become a full-time job. And having release and DevOps engineers on board take this work away from the developers, and thanks to that, you let the developers do what they really love, and that of course means programming. Apart from new roles, your inner source community have to take care about good documentation. I've titled this slide with a question, did you read me? To focus your attention on this file. And you may think that it's obvious to have README, but how many of you have gone to the project where there was no README file or it was really poor? And after a few minutes of investigation, you couldn't figure out how this project works and what it does? In such situations, developer usually leave the project and decides to use something else, or when the feature is really small, decides to write it by himself. And that's definitely not the point. Having good README file will increase the chances that your project will be used by others. It will also bring benefits to you because it will protect you from answering the same questions over and over again. And any new developer that will come to your project will learn it much faster. So what good README file should have? Definitely think of having a short description of the project, how to build and compile the project, what dependencies can be used, where to find other sources of documentation, and who is the contact person. Apart from README file, you of course can have other useful files inside your repo. So what are these? Definitely think of having contributing agreements, which will be discussed in a minute. Another file is changelog. Please make sure to keep it updated, and I guarantee you that it will be a bless for your testers and release engineers. I would also strongly recommend you using pull request templates. It really speeds up checking PRs and can mitigate errors at its early stages. Your repository is not the only place where you can keep the relevant documentation. You, of course, can keep it in places such as Confluence, or even your discussion history can become a good source of documentation. Remember, however, to keep everything synchronized and follow the rule of the single source of truth. And now we will discuss in more details these contributing agreements, which I mentioned earlier. This can be described with Spanish sentence, mi casa es su casa, which means my house is your house. And this metaphor refers to two things. First, which says that each guest is welcome into our house, and that of course means our project. And second, which says that as in every household, there are certain rules for guests which must be followed. So please remember that not everyone has the same standards as you, and everything will go more smoothly if you, as a host, communicate your expectations to your guests. So what are these expectations? Of course, it might be everything connected with establishing some coding or testing conventions. You may establish also the rules for naming branches or naming the commit messages. You can provide guidelines how to submit a PR or issue, how the build process is scheduled, and what dependencies can the developers use inside the project. Of course, there are many others of them. So I strongly encourage you to establish such common rules because they will help you to keep the project tidy, mitigate the risks, and speed up the code review process. When establishing these contribution agreements, please remember or be careful even not to overcomplicate them. Most probably in your company, there are projects with different level of importance, and establishing too many rules to a small project will only slow you down and you will lose your flexibility. So last but not least, pay attention to the communication within your community, because remember that technology problems are fairly easy to solve, but it's communication problems which are much harder to solve. So do not let the important communication to be held on private chats. Do not make decisions behind closed doors. You have to change the mentality in your company and break the walls. So keep in mind that all important decisions regarding the project should be made and announced in public. It's very important that all members of the community are informed whenever something important takes place. Agree on one communication channel and make sure the history of the communication is easily searchable. So summing up, what benefits will you bring to your company when you introduce the inner source there? First of all, you will gain more reusability of your code. Same problems should no longer be solved over and over again. Secondly, you will gain all the benefits of the open source community, such as openness and collaboration, continuous improvement of your product and project, and focus on documentation. And finally, the inner source will bring you higher motivation among the employees, which will attract and retain the talents within your company. Because where else will they have better environment to grow?
What we say here for sure may be disputed. This architecture may be over-engineered for your small app, or inner source may be not such a great idea for a team of 2 developers, or just all of this seems to be too perfect to be true. What we wanted from this presentation was to give you a bit of light on how it's done in our company, which is a big and complex company. You may not use it now, maybe in the future in your next company, maybe your company will grow to such. You don't have to use it the way we do. You can take just a small part of it and adapt to your needs. We hope it will give you a few additional thoughts when designing new apps or contribution rules, and maybe, just maybe, it will help you from getting to the point of being furious about your project or work. That's all for the presentation. Thank you very much for listening, and I think now it's a good time to check on your questions. Yeah, maybe I will pick the first one. How do you solve dependencies between modules when having mostly no code in the app shell? How is it configured? So for that, we're mostly using the core libraries. And for example, if you want to navigate, we have a library called navigation. So you can just specify to which journey you want to follow after your step in process. And whole core is only implementing knowledge around the journey. So you can use it and you will just navigate with that one. And if you have any business process or something like that to be handled to other journey, you just place some interfaces within core library and you can pass the implementation from the app shell.
Okay, I can pick the second one. Are you using the same UI with styling relevant to each product, or if not, how do you handle bespoke UI across different products? Do you support reusable widgets? So, of course, we got this library, which Jacek explained, design library, which we encourage all the developers to use across all applications. It has similar sets of components like buttons, screen, error screen, it is around the design system, built around the design system. And when it comes to like specific implementation of UI, we let the developers do them inside the journeys. So they can use the design library, but they can also develop their own components.
Okay, the next one. Do the foundational libraries each have a separate repo? For example, independent Git repo? Yes, they each have a separate repo with its own pipeline, configurations, and even we require them to have a sample app. So each process can be tested alone without integration to the host app.
Okay, here is one more. Could a journey navigate to another? What is the navigation solution? So we do not recommend like navigation from journey to another journey. The best way is to from this host app navigate to journey and back, so that all the navigation process is handled inside the application, inside the host app. So yeah, that's the solution for this.
Okay, any good practices on how to identify the 70% of common parts of a future business use case that can be shared and make the rest configurable? Also, how do you avoid you ain't gonna need it configurability that won't be needed? So I believe there is no perfect method to do that, but what works for us is that we gather the requirements before implementing a feature and try to implement the minimal required ones, right? But you have to always keep in mind that there can be more. So we try to draw the architecture the way that it will allow to handle more features in the future, and it will not break all the existing parts of application.
Considering that conflicts is common in a large team, what are the process to establish consensus or of definitions, standards, and architecture? As we said, we are trying to make decisions in a large group. So the community makes these decisions. Of course, in the community, there might be some different voices, and we are trying to see all the advantages and advantages of each solution, but we always make sure that everyone is listened, so that when the meeting ends, for example, the people doesn't go with this feeling that my voice was not important. We try to consider each voice separately and choose the best solution for our problem.
Okay, how to maintain documentation always up to date? So this is the hard one. So I believe we're mostly, for our developers, try to keep the documentation in GitHub repositories. So it works quite well, and that also requires a developer changing some piece of code, some library, to also update documentation. And also what Paweł mentioned, pull request templates. We also have a little check for a contributor to check if he actually did not forget to update documentation. So yeah. I believe, that's the most you can do.
Yeah, I think that there is only also one thing that you can think of. Attached to your definition of done, writing the documentation. So it will keep you constrained to that you have to fill up this gap and write this documentation, because you will not finish the Jira ticket when the definition of done will be not fulfilled.
Okay. I believe we have some more time, so maybe I will pick the next one. What architecture does each product app use? MVVM, MVP? Have you set agreement for a specific architecture or different products have the freedom to choose their own? How does this impact the integration of your libraries? So we're mostly trying to use MVVM, but we also give a bit of freedom to journey teams. So if they think certain architecture will not fit their requirements, or the certain architecture will fit their requirements more, that's good with us. And what we are trying to do is actually work the other way around. So we try to persuade people not to use legacy code, right? So we have some strict rules on which libraries we can use and things like that. And it also helps to manage those dependencies and architectures, so people know from which they can pick for their needs.
Yeah, and answering this second part of this question, does it influence the host app? So this decisions, whether we use MVVM or MVP in the journeys, it doesn't influence our host app, because host app doesn't see the architecture of the feature. It only see the integration part. Are you using a single repository for all the apps? No, definitely we are not using single repository for all the apps. We've got a lot of...
I'm afraid that this question refers to different entities, right? So,
okay.
Yeah, if it comes to single app as a for all the apps as a HSBC, for example, for UK, USA, or Hong Kong, Yes, we use a single repository, but with different flavors that define the content actually of the application. Yeah. And what advice can you give on convincing the people in your company to adopt an inner source mentality? Paweł, do you have any?
Okay, so first you have to make sure that inner source is right for you, because if you have really small team from, as Jacek said in the presentation, made from 2 or 3 developers, there is no point to introduce the inner source. But if you live inside your company that where there are many developers, many different projects, I think that it is a good way. It is a good way of leading your projects. You can give them an examples, because going away from this silo building, silo development of the code is really good. Will bring you benefits.
Okay, how do you handle the exceptions? I believe we don't have any unique handling of exceptions for whole app and all the features. We have handling of the networking exceptions for the journeys to receive one common type and understandable for all the journeys. But in a journey or on a screen, you just handle it the way your regular use would be.
And did you use the dynamic feature library? Not as far as I know.
Yeah, I believe not for now. I think it's over with the questions. If you have any further, I believe you can ping me on LinkedIn, and also Paweł is open for those questions too.
Definitely.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for listening. Goodbye.